What I'm going to do, thank you for the introduction, Jason. We're going to go through introductions, and I'm going to ask each of you 15 to 30 seconds, please, and then introduce yourself, and then I'll get into the really hard questions, because I got some really hard questions. I know I prepared you guys, but I changed it all in the last couple minutes.
Very good.
Is that good? Is everybody all right? Yeah, make it really hard for them? Please.
Hello everyone, I'm Stuart Dick. I'm the head of quantum technologies at the Department for Transport in the UK. My role is really to raise awareness of quantum technologies in the department and also drive the department and the wider transport sector in the UK towards a state of quantum readiness so that we can be early adopters of these quantum technologies.
Excellent. Thank you. Erin?
I'm Erin Beilhartz. I work for Lufthansa Systems. We're like an IT company of Lufthansa Group, and I try and find frontier technologies or bad problems that we can plug with leading edge technologies and bring them in and sell them to the different airlines. It's hard work.
Aubrey?
So, Aubrey Davis. I am a professor of law at the United States Air Force Academy, and our portfolio deals mainly with emerging technology development and programs. In the quantum space is absolutely a place where we spend a very, very great deal of our time. So,
Douglas?
I'm Douglas Paul from the University of Glasgow. So I run the new quantum-enabled position navigation and timing hub in the UK. So that's a hub, £26 million, bringing together academics for research, but also building a UK ecosystem and community in quantum-enabled position navigation and timing.
Excellent.
Great. I'm Emil Leclerc. I'm a quantum research scientist at the federally funded Research and Development Center, MITRE, in the US. I'm specifically based in Boston, leading our quantum sensing efforts using diamond-based modalities.
Great, thank you. And I have to say, you guys are pretty efficient because you did it less than 30 seconds apiece. So, Erin, I'm going to start with you. Tell us, what are the advantages? I know you're with Lufthansa. What are the advantages of getting quantum sensing to work in aircraft navigation?
So thank you. Currently, we have a situation where there are areas on this planet which have GPS, which is getting spoofed and jammed. And this creates, among our pilots in the cockpit, it creates all of a sudden a situation where your instruments are no longer performing properly. It could be that the time is 5 minutes in the past or a day and a half in the future. And this is all very disconcerting when you are in the air and when there's other things going on as well. It could also be that you are in an area where it says you're about to fly into the Himalayas and you can see that there's nothing there. So we need to create a technology stack which can not replace GPS, but when there's these incidents, it can offer a layer of psychological safety that when pilots are experiencing these things, we currently have a situation where the technology will turn off the GPS when there is this tampering happening, and it will tell the pilots this is turned off, and it will give them a small alarm to say this is coming back online now. And this is one technology that would really help if it went in addition to the GPS systems. There's probably other technologies as well, but if this would really help to give them a very good position of where they are and that there's no more confusion and complexity in the cockpit.
No, that's a great example. Actually, it's kind of scary having to think about when I fly back home to Dubai. And I was about to ask Stuart about, give us an example of projects that illustrate the importance of PNT. But I don't know if you can beat being on an aircraft. Sure.
Well, let's change the mode of transport to rail then. As part of an SBRI Catalyst Fund, we were lucky enough in the DFT to support a funding competition where the University of Sussex and Imperial College were working together to create an integrated approach to quantum sensing that could help improve positioning of trains in the London Underground. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but GNSS doesn't work particularly well underground, so we need to come up with a better, more accurate approach to positioning trains. And this project was designed initially to identify areas of track degradation in the London Underground, but you can actually use it for operational purposes. And the idea behind this piece of work is to really improve, in the long term, improve safety and improve positioning, so we can potentially, if it's possible, improve capacity in the London Underground. But this positioning system could also be used on above ground railways as well, because they don't really use GNSS there either. So this isn't a question of holdover time when GNSS isn't available. It's just that GNSS isn't used at all. So it's about trying to find a new approach to providing more accurate positioning of these railways.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for that example. Douglas, I'm going to go to you. I'm going to ask you about these quantum technologies. What's the first market that's going to adopt this navigation? And actually, I really like this question. What's the likely killer market?
I think everybody agrees that defense is going to be the first user of this technology and wants to be the first one to procure the technology. Also, certainly submarines have no access to GNSS.
I'm sorry,
obviously.
you say submarines?
Any submarines.
I'm careful because the guy next to you is not allowed to say that word.
In any theater of war, there's so much GPS jamming and spoofing going on that you can't rely on any of the satellite systems. So, military definitely is investing heavily in that space for many reasons. When you start looking at, where the killer application might be, and it's always difficult to predict these things, as you know, but certainly in the UK, we've had Innovate UK spent a lot of money on a Spider project doing single photon LiDAR. And what's really exciting about that, the end users were companies like Jaguar Land Rover. So connected and autonomous vehicles, and actually, as somebody from Glasgow, it's not always sunny. And you have to worry about all types of obscurance, such as rain, fog, sandstorms, if you're in certain parts of the world.
Yeah.
So that was being able to see, with eye-safe powers of 10 milliwatts, over 330 meters through obscurance. With video rate, 50 hertz for frame rate, doing target recognition just with standard graphics cards and laptop computers. So not an HPC or a supercomputer or a quantum computer to take all the data and do target recognition, but what automotive companies will need for connected and autonomous vehicles. Now, predictions of that market, are up to $100 billion by 2035. And now there's a lot of different LiDAR systems, but if you look at what competes with that, you need to get to 100 kilowatts. And I don't want to stand in front of a laser of 100 kilowatts when it fires.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And that's a huge market. Definitely something that we need to pay attention to. Audrey, what are the largest barriers to full-scale adoption or collaboration within P&T?
So there's a couple of things to really consider when you're looking at the P&T space and how that integrates with quantum. From the United States government perspective, you've really got three agencies, three large executive branch agencies that deal in this space. And so you've got DHS, DOD, all the classics. And with that comes their own regulatory framework. So many of you I know in this room understand EAR and ITAR probably very, very deeply, probably more than I do. But you've also got the Department of Energy as well. And so you've got DOE 810. And so as you work through, especially the dual use space, you will find that probably one of the bigger challenges is not just dealing with the EAR or just dealing with the ITAR. It's dealing with them stacked on top of one another. And so I think that's one of the challenges that we probably should spend some time deep diving into. But not all hope is lost. So one of the major things that some of you have worked with in government are tech sharing agreements. And we have a complete and robust tech transfer system, mainly through a system called CRADA. At least at the Air Force Academy, we have a lot of CRADAs. Notable ones are like with Continuum and other companies like this that allow us to both spin in and spin out technologies. And so what that allows us to do is to collaborate together as a team across borders, across years of time when we're able to do that. And so not only do we have the challenges, but I think we also have some potentially good solutions there.
Excellent. Thank you. Nima, let me just go to you. You've got these denied environments, right? And so you're building hardware for these denied environments. What are some of the things you need to consider when building that? And what are some of the obstacles that you're running into? I know you're a very technical person yourself, so.
Yeah, so I'll go pretty technical. Not too technical, but the basic idea with these platforms is that, I'll take magnetic navigation as an example. you want to be able to detect the Earth's crustal magnetic field and take really accurate measurements of that and compare that against some reference as you're flying. So say you already know like some reference magnetic field measurement of, or magnetic field map of the Earth. And you're basically the way this protocol works is you're taking measurements of the Earth's crustal magnetic field referenced against that background magnetic field. Now, the kilometer to kilometer variation, spatial variation of the magnetic field that you're trying to measure will be on the order of nanotesla, which means you need a really accurate sensor to be able to detect those really tiny magnetic fields. And often there's going to be other types of interference from electromagnetic fields, acoustic signals, other types of vibrations, which means that your sort of requirements for the sensitivity will be much lower. So ideally, you want to be able to operate in this femtotesla regime. That means that sort of translates to the type of quantum hardware you need to detect those magnetic fields. So, you know, I think as an engineer and as a physicist, what sort of physical device do I need to build and what are some of the requirements that I care about? I need a sensor that could detect magnetic fields in this case and do that with ideally femtotesla sensitivity. Another requirement that I have is I want it to maintain that sensitivity over the course of the entire flight. So when I have other types of interference from electromagnetic fields or from other types of vibrations, I want it to remain at sort of 1 to 10 femtotesla throughout that entire flight. And that again like translates to other requirements that we have for the types of materials that we use for the sensing platform itself, as well as the way we sort of control the sensor to reject the noise. So one of the efforts that I'm involved in is in developing a solid-state platform for magnetic navigation, where we're using a diamond-based quantum sensor. And I think like one of the advantages of our platform is that the way we control the quantum sensor allows us to adaptively cancel out the noise in the environment, kind of like when you put on noise-canceling headphones. And this is one approach where you could sort of control the quantum sensor in an intelligent way to reject this noise and maintain the sensitivity that you care about. I do want to point out that there's been one really successful demonstration of this by Q-Control. Mike gave a talk earlier today where they were able to demonstrate this entire full stack approach from the conception of the physical sensing device integrated with their entire quantum sensing software stack, and then sort of employment of new AI-based filtering techniques to reject noise as a post-processing step. So that's sort of one successful demonstration that we could use as inspiration. But I think there's still more work to be done across other metrics.
Good job getting that plug in for Q control.
Yeah, for sure.
Douglas, let me go to you. So based on what Nima was talking about, what are the difficulties of putting this to market? In other words, what are the things that quantum navigation systems are going to stop it from going to market? What do we need to do?
So certainly inertial sensors at the moment are far too large and cost a fortune to make. And reducing size, weight, power, and cost is one of the critical drivers in this whole field. So making things small enough that, for example, I'll do my usual trick that, that's a MEMS rubidium cell that you can make an optically pumped magnetometer from, but it's also microfabricated in ways you can mass produce. Mm-hmm. So if you look at present optically pumped magnetometers, it's little quartz cells that are hand built, and that's difficult to scale, and they're $10,000 each. So, taking microfabrication and what makes the chips that sits in our laptops and broadcasting from this, using those technologies to allow higher volumes and bring the cost down is also going to be critical to allow these technologies to get to market. The other benefit from this is this stuff is really tough. Mm. You can throw it at things, anybody that's met a squaddy in the British Army, any equipment you build, 100G shock test is an absolute minimum because they will get bigger than 100G for shock. So all these things are really important to get them to market.
Stuart, I'm going to come to you. You know, I've been to Greenwich, and I know the importance that kind of setting the time for the UK market, what that did to navigation, to the naval. What does PNT mean to the UK market?
So in November last year, DFT published an economic impact analysis of quantum technologies in transport. And that was created by Resonance Inc., who give us the Quantum Insider. And with that, they estimated the net value impact of quantum technologies between 2030 and 2035 of between 4 and 8 billion pounds, and that's just in the UK transport sector. So whilst it's difficult to tease out just how much of that proportion would be PNT, there are some really good examples of how we can actually see these benefits. And if I use say let's look at maritime cargo freight, for example. In 2021, we had about 85,000 freight vessels moving in and out of our ports in the UK. So regardless of whether these goods are being imported or exported, I think it's probably a good idea that we can get them from A to B on time and in a timely manner. And that includes being able to navigate when GNSS systems are down. And so you can that's a good illustrative example, I think, of a system where quantum PNT systems will actually provide an economic benefit. And we've got to think about the future. So there's marine autonomous surface ships coming soon, and we need added safety for these. So that redundancy that can be factored in with quantum PNT systems will help massively with that as well.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I've got good news for the audience. We're about 12 minutes and 30 seconds away from 1 o'clock, and only 2 more questions. And actually, it's the same question for both of you. So, Erin, I'm going to start with you. It's around the barriers, kind of, to implement these systems, and I'll go over to you, Aubrey, to ask the same question. And then I have the final question for all of you that I'll ask each of you the same question, and kind of what do you want to leave the audience with? So, can you start with Erin?
So what is going to have to happen? We have a lot of research military on this panel, but I'm here kind of on behalf of commercial aviation. For us, what we see is that this is still a little bit further away because it's in a proof of concept phase and a little test phase. What needs to happen to transition into something which is relevant for us and which is alleviating some of the problems of our pilots or overflying areas and burning more fuel and all of these kind of issues that we have is that we need to put the quantum sensor into a piece of hardware, embed it, I guess, in the avionics. If it is possible to bring it in and to have it in a laptop or docked somewhere, but not integrated into the aircraft, it's a proof of concept is kind of easier. If it is put into an actual piece of avionics, then you have to do a certification before any proof of concept can happen. This is typically 18 months. There's politics, there's stakeholder management around that. So this is a kind of long, sad story that everybody knows about the complexity of doing business with a lot of different stakeholders in a large organization. Ego is involved, all of the intrigue of...
Never heard of egos.
No, but it's going to be this kind of bumpy road. But so I think that the onus of getting this in is that one airline at one point will be the front runner and would like to invest in the time and the resources into getting this over the line. But I'm not sure which airline group is there yet. I'm trying to hold the flag at my group to try and get this over the line. But we've been working on this. Elizabeth in the front row, we talked about it last year, and she said, "Can we give you a grant? Can we do something?" And I was like, "I will check." And so I've been checking for a year. Not always very hard, but it is a little bit tough to get this excitement and uptake because everybody knows that you have software, you have hardware, you have a hardware integration with a very big kind of complexity with regards to, for us, it would be put it into Lufthansa Technik, who would then go through the certification. But then also, and I was a little bit curious about what you said, Doug, about the automotive example. I know that if you have a fleet of cars using, then they're all able to learn from each other's data and to do this. But if you have an aircraft, they all shake and vibrate a little bit differently. So when we talk about AI, we do one digital twin per aircraft. And when we talk about our human bodies, we're going to have one digital twin per human body. And it's not like one twin will know everything. And so what I've understood about this technology is that you are collecting data. You have to blend out all of the metallic noise, whatever that's occurring, and that you're left over with the actual metallic seam in the earth. And so if you say flying slightly different routes every time on slightly different aircrafts on different days, the amount of data that needs to be collected on so many different aircraft, I think that this might actually take several years to have a really good data bank. Maybe synthetic data is possible, but I think that there's a lot of unknowns here. It looks easy, but maybe it's going to be easier in 2045, I don't know, but this is kind of what I see as the complexity landscape.
All right, I want you to start thinking about what you want to leave the audience, and maybe you tie some of that in. Aubrey, I mean, I know you're a military person.
Right.
Do you want to maybe tie that into it, or tell us what you think the barriers are?
So there's a couple of barriers that I think are worth mentioning. You remember the physical limitations. No matter how accurate the actual satellite is, the data that it sends out still has to be transmitted to the ground somehow, and it's mainly going to be through the RF, the radio spectrum. By the time it hits the ground, it's at approximately negative 162 decibel watts. That's for the GPS, the US GPS system, and that includes GPS 3F. Galileo has gone ahead and increased some of those frequency strengths a little bit more, but at the end of the day, still be thinking about though you may have an exceedingly accurate satellite system, it still has to go ahead and communicate with the ground. And I like, Aaron, what you were talking about with regard to the standardization piece of this. Even if you're talking about something as simple as just the basic standards for what you put into whatever piece of equipment you're dealing with, I mean, just take NATO, for example. NATO uses the STANAG process, and I know many of you in this room have been involved in that system. That means that all the countries essentially have to agree by kind of like a UN, model UN kind of process to say this is exactly how we are all going to do that so that we can go ahead and communicate our data back and forth to one another. And it's so very, very important, but it is a time-consuming process. And so it's important as you're thinking through this, like how do we make this system in and of itself intuitive, user-friendly, and understandable?
Excellent. Thank you. All right. So 6 minutes and 48 seconds to 1 o'clock. So, what do you want to leave the audience? We got a minute and a half, 90 seconds. What would you like these guys to know about the subject?
Yeah, I think that what I'd like people to know is that at the Department for Transport, we're very interested in learning more about the potential for quantum PNT systems. And so if you are a developer and you'd like to tell us more, we're very open to listening, very open to hearing more about it. There is a new funding competition that was just announced this morning for quantum sensors, which includes PNT. Great to hear more about your proposals if you're a developer, and if there's any potential to meet and put connections together, happy to help with that as well.
Good challenge to the group here. Thank you, Aaron.
Accepted.
Okay, so for us, I think my message would be there are other technologies that are giving data feeds and are already existing. And I think a more pragmatic, maybe bridge solution is to now using quite sophisticated AI to see how we're able to triangulate and create other data feeds which can provide a residual kind of backup system before quantum sensing is commercially available, ready to roll out. We've seen some kind of solutions on the market. We haven't tested them yet. We're in the process of analyzing this, but if you're able to take, there's beacons all over the world already, and if you're able to take some of the classic information systems that are already existing that are not related to GPS, and then you're making sense of this data and figuring out if you can do that on the edge and give the pilot real-time information, that is probably going to be a very helpful situation, and it's going to be a much quicker thing to get over the line.
Excellent. Thank you. Aubrey.
as a takeaway in this space, I'm often reminded of one of my wife's very favorite movies, which is Under the Tuscan Sun. We watch it at least maybe once a month, perhaps. I don't know. I've lost count. But in that movie, they talk about a very important pass that happened between Vienna and Venice. The Austrians built a railway long before there were trains even developed, or even a train that could even make the pass. It's called the Center Pass. And I would encourage people to be thinking about this. We don't have the actual systems built yet. They're very big. They need an airplane to even run the darn thing, or a large room. But there will be a time where we're going to be able to go ahead and actually access satellite systems and actually put it on board. So as you're building your satellites now, as you're building your systems now, be thinking about building that railway before the train's ever built, and leave room on the system that will allow us to accommodate those things. That would be what I would do there.
I'll have to watch the movie. That sounds very interesting. Douglas.
So end users in this space, they basically want reduce size, weight, power, and cost from the systems, particularly quantum systems. And the other very quick takeaway home message is they don't care if it's quantum or not. So you need to demonstrate benefit at lower cost.
Yeah, that was quick. Well done. Yeah. Well, it's all goes back to ROI and showing benefit. So are you a banker, or are you an ex-banker or recovering banker? Because
I have a spin-out company. I work for a lot of...
All right. I picked up on that. All right, Nima.
Yeah, thinking about it from a technological perspective and the metrics that we care about, sensitivity, stability, size, weight, and power, and thinking about where these things are actually going to be deployed. So we've seen one successful demonstration in air, but I think there are many other types of environment that we need to explore, such as underwater, apart from being like in a plane, maybe being on a drone where the swap requirements may be more stringent. And how that translates to the technological development is that we need to think about working across, and also be flexible in working across, many different types of quantum sensing platforms. So there are many platforms out there, solid state, atomic, and others. And we also need to think about talking to other fields more, because I think like the best ideas that you're seeing come out really come from the coalescing of ideas from material science, from control theory, integrated photonics, because it is like a really interdisciplinary space. So yeah.
Great. It's a fascinating topic. It's just incredible how much goes into that and this new technology. It's exciting. So I want to thank you all for your time and working through this. And I've got a request for the audience. Today's been a long day. I want this to be the loudest clap and roar and I want people outside thinking, what did I miss? Ready? So on 3, make this really loud. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Woo! Thank you.